A shout out to Ge.Holla and
Hey, GeHolla, G.Holla.
Ge.Holla. Charlamagne the God here, man.
All y'all said entertainer, shout out my guy Ge.Holla.
Rocking right now with Ge.Holla, Celebrity Life.
Shout out to Ge.Holla reaching 1 million listeners on his podcast.
Wow, you remind me so many like episodes I seen with Star Trek, The Next Generation.
Yeah.
He actually was in one time, and it was a cloaked planet, and they had such advanced old technology that people were getting sick because they no longer knew how to maintenance it, and they took their children off the ship, off the Enterprise, to help repopulate the planet. Wow, that's crazy. All of that stuff is right. How do you? What is the moon exactly? Because that's another theory where I've heard many different things.
Yeah.
It's that's a satellite because that's what they get from Star Wars as the Death Star. Yeah. And there are people that's actually living in the inside and on the dark side of the moon, just like in the movie Transformers. What is the moon exactly?
Yeah. Well, the moon is pretty interesting. So the moon is, according to the Sumerian tablets, Lamu, the moon was an orbiting satellite of this other planet named Tiamat in ancient times. We're talking about millions of years ago. Tiamat was, Earth didn't exist yet. We had Mercury, Venus, and then you had Tiamat, and then you had the other planets. And so Tiamat, according to the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, and also the Epic of Atrahasis, Tiamat was destroyed in a battle. And so Tiamat, when it blew up, a huge chunk of it swung away and became the Earth as it recoalesced. It had water, it had solid ground, it had organic material. There was life on Tiamat. And then the other parts of Tiamat crumbled up and became what we call the asteroid belt, known in the Bible and other texts as the hammered bracelet, also in the Sumerian tablets as the hammered bracelet. So that's what the asteroid belt is. The asteroid belt is an exploded planet. Now, Mars and our moon were actually orbiting Tiamat. So Mars was a habitable moon, and Lamu was also a habitable, our moon was also a habitable moon. That's why you see Mars is in this very strange orbit around the sun. You can reverse the orbits and you can see that it was slung out from a gravitational pull, and it created this very strange, weird, elliptical orbit around the sun. So it was more evidence that it used to orbit something in our solar system that was massive, because Tiamat was about 4 to 6 times larger than Earth. And then our moon gravitationally was tugged away with the giant mass that broke away and recoalesced into Earth. Much later, the moon then was inhabited by people. This was talked about in the Sumerian tablets. They hollowed that moon out and they created a civilization inside the actual moon. Now, evidence for this, to get away from conspiracies, let's drop conspiracies. Just take the radar image data from the Arecibo satellite, telescope, and you can go on usgs.gov and you can download these images for yourself. It's publicly available. It's not even hidden information. When you look at the radar, the ground penetrating radar images of the moon, what do you see there? You can see about 30 meters beneath the surface, and you see what look to be gigantic steel structures with no editing, no Photoshop. With the naked eye, it's right there for everyone. They hide everything in plain sight. And so this is why when they dropped that, the module on the moon, they crashed back into the moon. The moon rang like a bell for hours, because the moon definitely, for a fact, is hollow on the inside, and it's in a geostationary orbit. We can only see one side. There's a massive base on the backside of the moon. The astronauts in Apollo 10 talked about it. They talked about the fact that when they went on the dark side of the moon, because they didn't land, they only orbited the moon, the Apollo 10. When they went on the dark side of the moon, they went out of comms range from Earth. But when you get the Freedom of Information Act to pull the black box audio from Apollo 10, what do we hear? We hear all the astronauts, their comms got hacked by somebody, and all the comms were being played, this music, this very strange music was playing in the comms while they were on the backside. And so while they were there, this planetary, whoever's down there, was transmitting through their comms, hacked into the comms and was transmitting to the comms. Apollo 11, from the Freedom of Information Act, again, all the black box audio and the black box redacted text statements show that when they were orbiting the moon and looking for the landing spot at that point, one of the astronauts said, look at those convex domes down there, those convex, what do you call it, craters. He's trying to say dome structure. Convex is an arch, so a dome structure down there, code word. And then the other astronaut, Neil, says, yeah, I bet the people down there never get out. So they knew there were people down there. They knew about this. When you analyze the craters on the moon, you start to see that they all have approximately the same depth. How can that be? How can every impact create the same depth? So you begin to realize that these craters are most likely artificial, and those are potentially, used to be dome structures there, or they may still be now. And from our perspective on Earth, with the technology they may have, it could be broadcasting it as a actual crater when it could actually not be a crater. And like I said, the depth is almost the same no matter where you look. So it's pretty interesting. So I believe that the moon is a natural object, but that was then turned into some type of a base for people. And when you read some of the tablets, it says that there was a war that went on, and because of one family double-crossed another family, they were banished to the moon forever. So it's very possible that those are the same people that could be there right now.